Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Kermitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as the wise James Earl Jones once said in a Sesame Street special we watched this week, it's impossible to condense 10 years of programming into just 30 minutes. So, we're going to give it about an hour and a half and see how we do.
We don't have regulations for how long this can be. We could just go forever.
No. And if you're new here, we're usually a podcast that watches everything the Muppets have ever done in chronological order. But since we're about to hit the end of the 70s in our chronological order, and we're about to celebrate 1 year of doing this podcast, we're stepping outside of our timeline a little bit for a month full of special episodes here in March. And this week, we are discussing the first 10 years of Sesame Street, which is obviously quite the tall order. And no, we did not watch every episode of the first 10 years of Sesame Street, because that would be 1,315 episodes.
Some of them are reruns. It would only be like 500-something episodes.
Only when they're all an hour long.
Yeah.
Spend an entire 2 months of our lives watching Sesame Street without ever sleeping. We watched 10 episodes and a bunch of clips from other classic sketches. So we kind of watched 1% of the first 10 years of Sesame Street.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was that was one of the main things, in watching so many of these, of just realizing how many of these we weren't watching. Because they feel so, complete, and there are so many of them that we did watch and so many hours of things we watched that I'm just like, wow, there is just literally hundreds of hours out there that we are not seeing during this time.
It would be nice if there was a supercut somewhere of just the puppet and street scene stuff. And you didn't have to watch 2 minutes of pigs, and a pig song, or the fifth or sixth time you see the pinball animation.
Yeah, we'll get into this obviously, but the repeated things was a thing that I don't think I understood quite clearly until watching the same sketch 8 different times.
Yeah. And
I don't think I understood that a lot of the classic songs are classics because they sang them all the time. I thought they were just that song we did a couple times was so good that it just lasted, its legacy has lasted 50 years. And it's no, we just sang it every other episode, so it's stuck in every kid's head.
They got to get a lot of use out of the footage they film, and they reuse songs liberally, yes.
But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or you're just scrolling through our podcast feed, you might see that we previously did a Sesame Street episode back in episode 7, 40 episodes ago, Sam.
Oh my God.
And in that episode, we talked about the beginnings of Sesame Street. We had both seen the documentary Street Gang. We watched the first season premiere and some classic clips from the season 1. And we discussed a lot of sort of what the beginnings of Sesame Street were as far as on the show and behind the scenes with people like Joan Gans Cooney and John Stone. And so we probably won't cover a lot of that this episode. Some of their names might come up. But if you want to listen to us talk about the beginning of Sesame Street and our feelings on that, you can go back to episode 7. Mm-hmm. But before we get into talking about Sesame Street this week, we should probably recap sort of our personal feelings on the show, both before we started doing this podcast and since we've started doing this podcast, and a little bit of our personal history with Sesame Street. If you want to go first there, Sam.
Oh God, put me on the spot.
There's only 2 of us. One of us has to be on the spot.
Yeah, I didn't watch Sesame Street much when I was a kid, or if I did, I don't remember it. I mean, that's almost the end of it. I watched Big Bird Goes to Japan. And I think I watched Follow That Bird a few times too, but I had the Disney Channel. I didn't need PBS, I wasn't watching public television too often. So when we started the show, I'd seen the same skits everybody had seen, and probably even less so. I don't think I'd seen C is for Cookie until we watched it for this batch of things.
Oh, wow.
I got a lot of appreciation for the Sesame Street characters in the early days of this podcast, like when that show came out, they were everywhere. And like that was the big thing they were pushing. Big Bird was a superstar. Cookie Monster was a superstar. Bert and Ernie were superstars. And they still are, like in the timeline that we're in on the show and in the real world. But we saw a lot of them, and they were very funny. And I love Carol Spinney. I think he's great. But until we watched this, I didn't really like realize this kind of put me into it. Well, we can talk about my feelings about this later, but that's my history with it. The end.
Yeah, I'm in somewhat of a similar boat where I also, we had cable. I watched a lot of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel growing up.
I watched Muppet
and
Show reruns on Nickelodeon instead of Sesame Street.
Yeah, I was a big Muppet Babies kid. Like that was my first exposure, I think, to the Muppets as a concept. And I would watch a lot of the like Muppets Tonight and a lot of those older, like early '90s Muppets things.
And Fraggle Rock too. Like,
oh yes, I also loved Fraggle Rock as a kid. So I think I liked the Muppets. Just and I was obviously very into Sesame Street when I was too young to remember it. I think because I have photos of like myself when I'm like 2 years old with a plush Ernie. So I know at some point I knew and loved these characters.
Yeah.
But I do not have very strong childhood memories associated with Sesame Street.
It's probably also always been easier to buy an Ernie doll than a Kermit doll, you know, or like a Fozzie doll.
Yeah, and I think the Sesame Street characters are, you know, more associated with children's toys more often than the Muppets are. So I think that makes sense to me. But yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of similar feelings throughout this episode of things we're discovering about Sesame Street, things that we like and maybe don't like about Sesame Street. But yeah, I think it's good to know that I think there are times some people have called us amateur Muppet fans, which there's not very many professional Muppet fans out there in the world.
Yeah.
But I think people are sometimes surprised at our lack of knowledge about certain corners of Muppetdom.
Yeah.
And I think Sesame Street is one of our biggest blind spots as far as Muppet stuff goes because, there's just
so much.
There's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also because neither one of us were huge Sesame Street kids. So, yeah, a lot of this was new to us, especially all of this stuff that came out 10 years, 15, 20 years before we were born.
We were born, yes. Even though I think like you could still turn on Sesame Street and see some of this stuff today, probably, I would guess.
Less so now that they're on HBO.
I guess when you make that leap to like high definition TV, you can't really bring like Winnie the Witch or whatever with you in its standard definition.
They don't reuse as much of it as they did up until like 2015 or whenever it was they switched over to HBO. But up until that point, I know they were still reusing a lot of old things. And they do, I think, still from time to time reuse things. But yeah, I think it's a bigger deal now when it's like, whoa, they used that throwback thing.
Yeah.
Or this week, it was not part of the things we planned on watching, but I realized I hadn't seen it. The Sesame Street 50th anniversary celebration special, which is like hosted by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is just kind of like a episode of Sesame Street, but they bring back so many old characters like Harvey Knee Slapper and Guy Smiley and Don Music and all these guys that it felt like a big deal that they were bringing out a lot of these people for the 50th anniversary that don't get to be on the show anymore.
Right.
So, speaking of all of those wonderful names like Guy Smiley and Don Music, Sam, try to recap and tell the people what we watched this week.
Here we go. Okay, so we watched Sesame Street. You know Sesame Street. Full disclosure, didn't rewatch episode 1, so I didn't write that one down.
Same. We talked about that one already, so
Yeah,
I felt like I didn't need to rewatch it.
Cool. Okay, great. So season 2, which was from 1970 to 1971, from my memory at least, shaves off a lot of the weirder elements from season 1. Like Big Bird sounds much less like Goofy. He doesn't have a weird pinhead. Oscar's green instead of orange. And we meet some new friends, puppet friends specifically, like Sherlock Hemlock, Prairie Dawn, and Harry Monster. And Grover steps into the spotlight as possibly the greatest Muppet of all time, in my opinion, at least. Also, strangely, in this season, Artie Johnson, playing his very interesting Nazi character from Laugh-In, just keeps popping up in this episode and apparently throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I was unpleasantly surprised.
Yeah, maybe don't put a Nazi in your... Like later on, like the Fonz pops up in Sesame Street, and it's like that's fine. Kids love
you can
the
have the
Fonz.
You're going to have kids, though, asking questions of like, Mom, who's the strange German man in the bushes?
Yeah, so what's, tell me the history of World War II, please. Yes, a character worthy of comedy derision, sure. But apparently they got a bunch of mean letters about having R.D. Johnson on there, too. So
My
good.
favorite note I found in researching that was Patricia Tornberg of the CTW, Children's Television Workshop, noted in January 1971, R.D. Johnson's Soldier has yet to attract any favorable comments.
Why would he?
Yeah.
Why would he?
I just love that she can point out that not a single person has said anything good about this character.
Well, anyway, around the same time as this coming out was also Great Santa Claus Switch and The Frog Prince elsewhere on television and in Muppetdom. Season 3, 71 to 72, I don't know why I wrote this. Not a ton different from season 1, because it is a ton different than season 1. I wrote a whole paragraph. It seems to me that the street scenes revolving around the core cast of human and puppets have been expanded quite a bit. You don't really get a lot of them in the first episode that we watched. We spend a lot more time with the human hosts, and the cast of human hosts has grown beyond Bob and Gordon and Susan and Mr. Hooper and David and Tom, who no one's going to remember, but he was there in season 1 too, I think.
He might have started in season 2, but yeah, he's from what we watched. Again, it's also the thing of like we watched a lot of episodes, but we also maybe we missed a whole big arc about Tom. But we barely saw Tom.
Yeah, because like Sesame Street, each of the episodes on HBO is like. Woof Woof gets his name changed, and it's like 4 minutes in the middle of the episode that like this major shift in Sesame Street lore can happen. So who knows what we haven't seen. But anyway, now the cast includes Luis, Maria, Linda, Molly, and Raphael. And some of those names might sound familiar, like Luis, Linda, and Maria, who'd stick around forever, basically.
Yeah, they're still popping up from time to time.
But there's a very strange male lady named Molly, who is like Ethel Merman kind of a tone.
At first I looked up because I was like, is that Ethel Merman? And it's not, but she's got some big Ethel energy.
And she's just so horny for Bob. She wants him so bad. And Raphael, who is played by Gomez Adams himself, Raul Julia.
That was wild.
Yeah.
I never knew Raul Julia was on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking it up and I'm like, what? That Gomez, what are you doing here? And Bison, what are you doing here?
It doesn't really particularly look like him. He's got very different hair and he's much younger than you would have seen him in Street Fighter and Addams Family.
Yeah, this was like 20 years before those things.
But it is certainly him. But Raul Julia and Molly wouldn't stick around. Tom will also just disappear eventually. I don't know how. And then David takes his role over as the employee at Hooper's store. Puppet-wise, Mr. Snuffleupagus, looking very scary with like green and orange eyes, makes his appearance. But he only makes his appearance to Big Bird for the next decade plus at least.
I think it's 14 years from this date.
It's when Rachel watched some of these with me, and whenever that like something sad would happen to Snuffy, she was like, I feel so bad for him. He wants to meet them so badly.
We get like so many examples of the no one believing Big Bird about Snuffy in these episodes that I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, we only watched like 9 new episodes and we saw so many examples of this. I can't even imagine how in the other 1,000 episodes how many times they do this kind of bit. And I just felt worse and worse for Big Bird and Snuffy every single time.
Everybody gets so mad at Big Bird, too.
They get so mad.
Big Bird, we don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah. Mr. Snuffy, likely story,
and they all
Big Bird.
Just stand and laugh at him.
Yeah. I understand like why they eventually decided like, hey, maybe we should let people believe Big Bird when he says something. But the fact that it took 14 years of this kind of thing is wild.
Yeah. I hope they really apologize to him. There's also that one where David hears him but doesn't see him.
Yeah. David believes. He wants to believe.
Yeah. Amazing Mumford, the Magician, the Yip Yip Martians, and Waiter Grover's eternal victim, Mr. Johnson, also appear in this season. And Kermit's back after getting a year's Sesame Street probation for being too commercial.
Specifically, we talked about this in the past, that he was like loosely associated with a tobacco commercial from like some TV show he was a part of.
Yeah.
And people didn't like that, so they wrote in and complained, and Kermit was taken away from Sesame Street for a season.
Yeah. But he's so instrumental to Sesame Street, I feel like. I loved when he'd pop up. So around the same time, Muppets Musicians of Bremen and the Electric Company also debuted. Season 4, 1972 to 1973. This one's really not too different than Season 3, except, well, again, very different. We have a new Gordon, a new human being playing a character.
There's a new human being and a new robot.
Oh, yes, that's true. Hal Miller takes over the role of Gordon. Raphael and Molly get the boot, as does Raphael's little son. We also get a new trio of Jerry Nelson characters: the Count, Sam the Robot, and Biff the Construction Worker. And Roosevelt Franklin appears, voiced by the previous Gordon, Matt Robinson, in what I only assume was a very complicated set of circumstances.
Yeah, I even tried to look more and more into that, and there's a lot of even like arguments on Muppet Wiki, like in the little discussion area, of people trying to decide like how long was Matt Robinson actually still voicing Roosevelt Franklin after he left the show?
Had they already recorded all of that, maybe? Or
it seems extremely unclear. I don't know that there's a lot of evidence out there for a lot of that, but there are some people who are claiming that like Jerry Nelson took over Roosevelt Franklin at some point,
I could see
which seems
that,
a little complicated.
But I could see it. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to look more into that next week because, spoiler alert, next week's Muppet of the Week will be Roosevelt Franklin. And hopefully I can find some answers about that.
I got to tell you, I'm not a huge Jerry Nelson fan, but Sesame Street, that's like his time to shine, baby. He's so good.
He does, yeah. Especially with Mr. Johnson and the Grover sketches.
And the Count.
Well, yes, obviously.
His, what's Dracula's name?
Bela Lugosi?
Vlad Tepes. Yeah, Bela Lugosi. His Bela Lugosi impression so freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is also the year of the Julie Andrews Hour and the Perry Como Winter Show, which feel like they're from an alternate dimension compared to Sesame Street. So season 5, 73 to 74, Find Sesame Street has hit a pretty good groove. The only additions are pretty minor. The cursed Twiddlebug family, which is a family of insects that live in Ernie's flower box that don't understand a goddamn thing. And Biff's coworker, the stoic Sully. And then this time frame, the Muppet Valentine Show was released. So the Muppet Show is booming closer to us. Season 6, 74 to 75, kind of more of the same, except the notable exception of another new Gordon, Roscoe Orman.
So many Gordons.
Yeah. This is the final Gordon, though.
Yes.
Taking over the role of Gordon, which he continues to play, I believe. Yeah?
Yeah. He's at least in the 50th anniversary special,
Okay.
I think is the maybe last time he was on screen as Gordon. A lot of the old human characters don't show up that much these days.
Bob? Does Bob not show up much these days? Bob
90. Is in that. Yeah, Bob is 90,
Okay.
Which, fair, rest, take some retirement, Bob.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most of the older human characters from this time do not show up on Sesame Street as regular characters anymore.
To me, I don't remember a lot of Sesame Street, but I very clearly remember Gordon and Maria and Luis. Those are like the three that stuck out to me from my childhood, at least.
Yeah, same. Like especially Roscoe Orman's Gordon. Obviously, he was our Gordon growing up. And yeah, the idea like with this podcast, learning there were other Gordons, and there was even in between Gordons that nobody talks about,
that nobody knows who it even was, or something like that, right?
Yeah, the very first test show Gordon, who was played by Garrett Saunders.
Yeah,
they just found out who he was like 2 years ago.
I liked him as Gordon. He had a tough situation with that turtle. Was that him?
Yes, I believe he was like talking with a couple kids about a turtle. It's been so long since we watched that, Sam.
Crawls under the building and he like has to crawl after it or something.
Yeah, somehow a turtle like runs away, which doesn't seem like a thing that would happen very easily, but they have to chase it down at the end of the show. He's like, well, you guys, I'm going to roll the credits now and I'm going to go chase that turtle down.
Also, season 6 finds the introduction of Don Music, the tortured musician, voiced by Richard Hunt, who also I feel like really got to shine in these Sesame Street episodes. Around this time, The Muppet Show, Sex and Violence, and Land of Gorge were happening, so the Muppets are getting a little nasty outside of Sesame Street. Season 7, nothing really to report here. Pretty much same old, same old. Land of Gorge dies this year so that The Muppet Show may live. Season 8, 76 to 77, finds a new human cast member, Gordon's sister Olivia, who I think we only saw like very minimally in what we watched.
Yeah, we did not see very much Olivia, but she is around for a while. We just didn't happen to see a lot of her in what we watched.
Yeah. And we are fully in Muppet Show land at this point, outside of Sesame Street. Season 9, 77 to 78, features an extended trip to Hawaii that we did not watch, and also the debut of Barkley, now called Woof Woof for the first year that he's on the show. And in the episode we watched, Gladys the Cow also made a very big impression on me, but I think she had been around for a long time already.
And I think she's like traditionally voiced by Richard Hunt, right?
Yeah.
Performed by Richard Hunt.
Yeah.
Because she kind of sounds a little bit like Janice.
She's
at
a little
times.
Miss Piggy too, though. Like a farm animal prima donna. They could be best friends or arch enemies, actually. Probably.
I didn't say. I feel like arch enemies.
Yeah. Emmett Otter and the Muppet Show are happening in the rest of the world. Season 10, 78 to 79, finds Woof Woof's name changed to Barkley in the season premiere, and the addition of Telemonster to the cast, but we did not see any Telemonster. It also seems like there has been some relationship turmoil off camera, as Maria, who was previously dating David, is now dating Luis, and David seems to be Olivia's love interest. And there's a very sad real-world reason why that happened that we've discussed before and we'll probably discuss again. But I found it interesting in universe that like Maria and David's relationship is so central to a lot of things, which is kind of just weird on its own. But then to have like that relationship swap, very, very interesting.
Well, and what's interesting is I also don't think they make that like a super clear like canon choice for a while. Like into the 80s, I think there's even some... I don't think they make it very clear that Luis and Maria are a couple until a little bit later. And so that's what threw me off about this too, because it seems like almost immediately to me watching this episode that Luis and Maria seem to be dating.
Yeah.
But
a lot
apparently
of physical
that comes...
contact.
Yeah, but apparently that actually comes later or it's established later. Maybe they're like laying the seeds for that right now.
Sure.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Huh. So this was also the year of the two Christmas specials that we watched, a Sesame Street Christmas and Christmas on Sesame Street, Christmas Eve on Sesame Street, something like that. The Orson Welles pilot and lots more Muppet Show. And then we also watched a walking tour of Sesame Street, which I failed to write anything down about. It's James Earl Jones walking down Sesame Street, talking to some of the human characters, looking for Big Bird, and just showing a lot of clips and explaining how the curriculum of Sesame Street works. But it's pretty similar to the thing Bert and Ernie did before the premiere of Sesame Street. There was like an NBC special where they were like, this is what Sesame Street is. This is how we're going to teach your kids.
It felt like a reminder for people who maybe forgot about Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Like, it was like sort of like, hey,
do you have
maybe,
a baby in the last 10 years? Check this show out.
Here you go. You heard of it?
Yeah, I think we would have gotten more out of it if we hadn't watched about 14 hours of Sesame Street in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say about this because it really is just a clip show. But I think the things worth noting is that, one, this is like hot off the heels of Star Wars. So James Earl Jones is in his very intense, I am James Earl Jones mode, which he kind of always is anyways. Yeah. But this felt like particularly Darth Vader-y to me. And it's nice noting that, I think we've mentioned this before on the show, but Will Lee, who played Mr. Hooper, was James Earl Jones's acting coach.
Oh, yeah. And they have a little moment together.
When he first sees him, he's like, hey, Jimmy.
Yeah. He does call him Jimmy, which is very cool.
But yes, it is mostly just a clip show. They show a lot of the international versions of Sesame Street, which are sometimes charming and sometimes terrifying.
Just a little scary.
Yeah, French Big Bird in particular.
He's not
sort
good.
of. He's very scary.
No. Yeah, so that's kind of, if you want to hear what was happening from 1970 to 1979 in the world, listen to every other episode of Kermitment. One fun thing I thought about watching the season premiere is that they almost all start with a character like walking down the street introducing everybody. I thought that was cute, especially the count one. That was my favorite one when he's counting people's street lights as they turn on at night.
Yeah, and there's also an episode, I think the season 4 premiere, where they're doing the alphabet and finding
that one was
somebody
great.
Who begins with each letter of the alphabet on Sesame Street. That it's a nice little introduction to.
That's like
everyone.
the first time you see Gordon too, and I feel like the guy's like, Gordon,
I am
me.
now.
You got to trust me.
I am the Gordon now.
Yeah.
That's also the first time we get to hear Willie's name, Willie the hot dog vendor, who's played by
yes.
Kermit Love.
Who looks exactly like current day David Letterman, went back in time and stuck onto the set of Sesame Street. And I was like, is that David Letterman? But no, it is Kermit Love, the man who birthed Big Bird.
Yes, one of Big Bird's fathers.
That is such a weird character, and he just keeps being there. It's like, you never
It's almost
talk
like
to this guy.
Yeah, it's almost like he's like supervising Big Bird to like make sure nothing happens to the costume. He's like, I need to be around at all times to make sure nobody damages my bird.
Yes, I know. I'll put on a disguise. No one will
I'm
recognize me.
Willie, the hot dog vendor.
There's also a fruit vendor who's just there all the time, and I can't remember his name. Macintosh, I think, is his last name. Mr. Macintosh. Because he's a fruit vendor.
He's a fruit vendor. He eats apples.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden when they need to vote on Woof Woof's name, it's like, oh, now you'll talk to us because you need our votes.
Yeah. Hello, Willie and random children. I need your votes to be on Woof Woof's side.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting notes I found while doing a lot of Sesame Street research over the past couple weeks, is that the fruit vendor originally was just selling like apples, bananas, pears, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then when like Luis and Maria were brought onto the show, the actors behind those characters were like, hey, in my neighborhood, the fruit vendors sell mangoes and other, like, not just apples and bananas.
Luis
So
buys a couple
can we-
mangoes from that guy.
Yeah, and that was apparently a suggestion from Sonia Manzano, who plays Maria.
Yeah. She's great. There's so many fun skits with her being like Charlie Chaplin, or like that one where they're climbing the mountain and almost dying. There's a lot of skits where the human characters are almost dying, or...
Right, which is always more alarming when we see Grover doing that same sketch on like pretty much like when he's climbing a mountain and gets rolled over by rocks. But it's less upsetting because he's a Muppet. We know he's fine. When it's like David and Maria climbing a mountain and like running out of oxygen and gonna fall off a mountain, I'm like, this is much more alarming.
Scary. Or like there's one where Luis is like in a dungeon of brick and he can't find the exit. First of all, I really know what exits are now.
Jesus. Yeah. I don't exits are the thing in every episode we watch pretty much. It's like, hey, exits, know them. They're a door that goes out.
Yeah. And don't walk across the street. That one pops up a few times. And also every episode almost was brought to you by the number 2 and the letter D, which was
and I don't know if that was
too.
a season premiere thing, that maybe they recycled the similar ideas for the season premiere, and they were just all right, every premiere is going to be the letter D and the number 2, because we did see a number of these season premieres that all were those same 2.
And sometimes it's not D, but it is 2. And I got sick of seeing the 2. I wanted to see the other number songs of not 2 turtles. I know it's going to be 2 turtles. I don't need to see that again.
But yeah, Sam, we watched a lot of children's entertainment over the past couple weeks, and it felt like it. I think there's a lot to enjoy here, but I also, you mentioned the pig segments earlier. There's a lot in here that just was like, I'm sitting there going, I am not a 4-year-old. This is not for me.
Some of the songs with the live action B-roll of kids at the zoo and stuff like that I was not as into. But
yeah, some of the cartoons.
It feels like you're going somewhere with this. What are you going to say next? I can't wait to
hear.
hear.
Honestly, I was just that was one of the main feelings I had while watching it. Was like, boy, that was a lot of children's entertainment.
Yeah,
and
I'll have to level with you that sometimes I did fast forward through some of those songs.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay,
Sam.
cool.
I am right there with you. I would make sure it was the same thing I had seen a couple times before, and I was fast forwarding.
I was like, is Grover going to pop up in the middle of this damn thing? Am I going to have to watch this? I don't know.
Yeah, how many times do I have to watch the Workin' Dog song?
Oh, that song sucked. I hated that song.
I mean, if there's any song that I'm most perplexed by throughout this entire batch, it is the Taking the Llama to the Dentist song.
Oh, I skipped that one because
Oh, what?
Yeah, that was on the bonus cuts or whatever we watched, right?
I believe so. It's in the classic cuts from season 10.
10, and I was just like, I can't watch more kids with animals. The one where the kids are at the petting zoo is hilarious, though, because those kids are getting bullied by animals, and they're so scared of all of those animals. And another thing is the intro song, the Sesame Street theme song, is so weird. The footage that they choose to put underneath it. It's crying children and children on wagons out in the country.
And sometimes just children that look wholly uninterested in being a part of a television show.
100% of them are wholly uninterested in being on the show. Some of them are actively in distress, though.
Yeah, and they're just like, yep, use that one. Perfect. That child crying by himself with no adults around.
Yeah,
Perfect.
sitting in the middle of the street weeping. Or country children for some reason.
Which I understand that like they want to show children from around the world and different parts of the world to show that like Sesame Street is for everyone. But at the same time, I feel like you could have got better clips of some of those kids.
Yeah, maybe throw Big Bird in there or something. Like let Big Bird walk down the street and all the kids will be like, wow, it's Big Bird. And then they'll run. Because I feel like that was kind of more what it was when we were kids, what the intro was, maybe.
Yeah, like the Muppets seemed a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I very much enjoyed all of the Muppet segments.
Yeah.
Like anytime Muppet was on screen, I was in favor of it. It was more so those like live action musical numbers or some of the cartoons also got really repetitive.
A lot of them are amazing though. A lot of them
the style,
would,
yeah.
A lot of them would like win like best animated short Oscars nowadays or something. It just felt so like creative compared. Just watching it was like, oh, I watch a lot of TV and a lot of it is so boring. But this is like they're taking some big swings here. There's some weird stuff happening.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about the kids on the show too, like the live action kids, not like cartoons or Muppet kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that it is all completely unscripted for them, and they are just thrown into these situations to like see what kids do. And I feel like that is something that definitely goes away later on with Sesame Street, that they do not do as often anymore. Like they will cast kids who are actors on the show these days, but they don't just have random kids thrown into situations where, you know, sometimes they're going to clap off beat and mess up Helen Reddy the whole time. Or sometimes they're going to start singing with Paul Simon and start improvising without him even knowing that was going to happen.
That one, I've seen that one before. There's a little girl singing her own song while he's starting Me and Julio down by the schoolyard. And whenever every time he interrupts her, I get so embarrassed for everyone involved. It's just like, kid, let me show you how a real song is sang.
Yeah, he's singing the, you know, Me and Julio. And every time he like has a musical break, she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just like, yes, good job. You understood the assignment. You came, you got your own, you're having fun. Which
Also,
is the
4
important
children
part.
clapping in completely different rhythm would be almost
There's so many
impossible.
times that like an adult will turn to the kids and say like, okay, everyone clap along. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go well, Bob. What are you thinking?
Please don't.
No one's going to be in rhythm, especially like the 2-year-old sitting here.
Yeah.
But one of the things I noticed about just, I don't know, not anything specific in this batch of things we watched, but one of my biggest takeaways from this was how noisy this show is at times and how there's just like a cacophony of noise where everyone is talking and there's music and I don't know if they expect you to follow what's happening sometimes, but it just devolves into a wave of noise at times that was like, if I
Like
was a
the
parent,
street scenes, is that what you're talking about, or the whole thing?
usually it's a street scene when there's Muppets and kids and adults all involved and everyone starts talking, and like usually the point of the thing is that it's sort of devolving and there's a lot of noise happening.
Yeah.
But I'm just imagining being a parent in the 70s and my kid watching the show and that happening and just turning it off.
Especially, I kept thinking like the TV is so small and looks like shit, and the speakers are probably horrible.
Yeah.
How are they parsing any of this?
Yeah, and I don't think they would. I think it just did come across as noise.
Yeah.
Just like it does today.
But yeah, it does seem like they have one take to do everything, and the humans are not super clear on what the script is, or they're supposed to ad lib, but they're not always maybe doing the best, especially compared to Jim and Frank and Jerry. Like Bob steps on jokes all the time.
Well, and I think there was a quote from John Stone that said, sometimes the ink was still wet on scripts when we had to start shooting it because the show was, again, you're producing 130 hours of children's entertainment a year, and you got to film a lot of segments for each episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can imagine that you only had 1 or 2 takes for things.
With
and,
these guys, you got to go back to England and make the Muppet Show.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like imagining them doing all those other Muppet things you mentioned while they're also doing these segments.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to see how really involved they are a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was surprised because I feel like when we were watching, like when I was Sesame Street age, maybe Bert and Ernie didn't show up on set ever. Probably because Jim Henson was dead for some of while I was growing up. But I was surprised that they would like pop up on the street as often as they did. And like Grover, I never even think of Grover as somebody who lives on Sesame Street, but he's just always there walking around.
Yeah, and I think my brain immediately slips into producer mode where I'm trying to think about scheduling Jim and Frank to come and film all of their segments in like a month or two while everyone else is trying to film their stuff around them.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining how chaotic it must be to try and schedule the Muppet segments of these shows.
Yeah, and then you have to be like, well, where are the 12 animated shorts that we've commissioned? How are those doing? You drew a giant rabbit monster chasing children in a forest? I guess we have to use it.
Yeah, there are a lot of the animations that I'm just like, what is happening? What is this thing? Like, what? Like, there's random characters walking around. There's like weird monsters that are supposed to be things that you're telling me this is a lion. It doesn't really look like a lion. What is that? There's a lot of chaos, I think, in these early days that sometimes works wonderfully and other times is just bizarre.
But focusing on the Muppet stuff specifically, this kind of put me into an existential crisis a little bit because it's so good that we're missing out on like this Muppet. The Sesame Street stuff feels so much more like the extension of what Jim was doing in the early days, and like it keeps evolving. The commercials, it keeps evolving. The late night skits, like the skits specifically, is something that you don't get as much in the Muppet Show. You get a couple backstage plots, but there's not like, hello, sir, I'll be your waiter today kind of skits on the Muppet Show. And I think that was the thing that I was like, I know all these Sesame Street characters so well now because all of their things are character-based skits and they're talking to each other and they're not singing songs, which I'm so sick of on the Muppet Show. I don't want to see them sing songs anymore.
And I think that's something that they get back into a little bit with Muppets Tonight. Like, I feel like Muppets Tonight was a little bit like, all right, everyone, it's time for this sketch. Like, it starts to feel a little bit more like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Which is, essentially Sesame Street is bringing together that Saturday Night Live sketch format with the Ed Sullivan sketches and the commercials that Jim Henson was doing. And I had the same thought. I was like watching these and I'm just having that same realization of I wish there was more stuff like this on the Muppet Show, because so many of these sketches feels like you could just edit them into a Muppet Show and they would feel right at home.
The humor is like exactly the same. They make little asides that kids wouldn't understand, like they're counting to 10, but Bert and Ernie are saying the most hilarious stuff you've ever heard a puppet say, basically.
Yeah, I found that even there are moments with Grover and Mr. Johnson in the first waiter sketch that you can clearly tell that there are some flubs, they're missing some lines, and Jerry Nelson and Frank are just running with it and doing a great job of keeping it going.
So good. It's like the classic Grover making that little blue man very mad. Except I really like the first one where it's the little blue man making Grover mad. Because Grover is so much more fun exasperated, I feel like, than he is being like, he like fucks up. But I don't know, the dynamic is swapped around in the first one in a fun way.
Yeah, because that's the alphabet soup one where the guy keeps sending back the soup because he is missing some letters.
Yeah.
And at the very end, he is like, well, nope, now I need another bowl because this one's cold.
And poor Grover's just trying the best he can. I love fucking Grover so much.
Yeah, Grover is amazing. And that was one of the things that really sunk in through watching this batch is how great Grover really is. And seeing how many times it is the dynamic of Frank Oz getting to annoy Jim Henson.
Oh,
whether it's
Kermit
like
and
Grover
Grover
and
is
Kermit.
the best duo. It's so funny, the one where... So Grover is always mean to Kermit, and he's like, hey there, froggy baby, and then he slaps him really hard on the back. And
He runs in from... Usually he runs in from out of frame screaming, froggy baby!
First of all, it's very fun to see somebody be mean to Kermit. Because in my head, it's just the same Kermit who's like gone home from work and he lives on this horrible street where everybody's counting all the time and bothering him. And he's just trying to be a normal man. But there's, I think season 10 maybe has a whole saga of Grover counting to 2 and trying to illustrate 2. You remember that? And in that one, Kermit's being mean to Grover, and he says, hey there, Grover, baby. And that's another one where Grover's like trying so hard to keep it all together. And it's just fun to see Kermit on the opposite end of like he gets his chance to be chaotic and ruin everything for poor Grover, who's being the producer for once.
Yeah, it was like somebody just asked Kermit to join a sketch, and he's like, "All right, but I'm not going to do a
gonna
good
learn
job.
my
I'm
lines
just
or anything."
Yeah. Hey, Grover, baby. Gotcha. Yeah, no, I had that realization of the Kermit Grover dynamic is basically the flipped version of Bert and Ernie, because Jim gets to annoy the hell out of Frank when he is the Ernie to Frank's Bert.
Yeah.
And so when they throw Grover and Kermit together, it is Frank getting to be super chaotic while Jim has to be very stoic.
Uh-huh.
And I just, those two guys are pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, and I would say Bert and Ernie sketches are like the peak best Muppet thing, maybe. Like Rolf is great, but Bert and Ernie is Frank and Jim, and they're just doing like these great sketches and very fully fleshed out characters. I love the one where Bert is talking about 6 being his favorite number, and he's singing a song about it, and Ernie's just in the background being like, "That's so boring, Bert. You're the most boring person I've ever met, Bert."
Yeah, there's I think it's in Street Gang, maybe. There's some very good behind the scenes clips of Bert and Ernie and some bloopers where like Frank specifically talks about if there was one time where like one of them would flub a line, neither one of them would choose to be supportive of the other and try to make it work or improv. They would intentionally like smile and look at each other like, "I'm going to make you regret messing up that line." And I think there's so many opportunities for things like that you see. Some of the great sketches were Bert and Ernie going to the movies.
Yeah.
Where there's various things that happen. Either Ernie is talking too loud or trying to open up some candy, or there's a tall hatted woman in front of them who is disturbing them. And yeah, just seeing them interact in ways that made them feel more real than just like, what are letters? What are numbers? But like seeing them out in the real world interacting with other characters.
Yeah.
Like that's what really made it feel like they could fit in on the Muppet Show pretty easily.
Yeah. That was the most surprising thing to me too, was that all those characters had personalities and they weren't just doing like what you said, counting stuff. And the theater ones really gave me like Wilkins Coffee ad vibes.
Oh yeah.
Or like the earlier work meeting vibes.
Yeah, there's I was pleasantly surprised by the Muppetdom that I found in these sketches, because I feel like in my brain they were just very aimed at 3 to 4 year olds, and I wasn't going to get a lot out of them. And I knew there would be the occasional one that would hit, but I was surprised at the hit rate of like 95% of the Muppet segments. I was like, hell yeah, that was great.
And that's kind of why it gave me my existential crisis, because it's like, we're missing out on all of it. Like so much development of humor, so many like just puppet shows, like some of the best puppet shows ever made are happening on Sesame Street and we're not watching them, but also it's impossible to watch them.
Yeah, it would be nice if like on HBO Max or something, the episodes were broken down into chapters where you could just like skip easily to the next thing. And I think like you said, if there was a great playlist or something of every Muppet segment ever, maybe there is on YouTube. I didn't look for that, but there are some very helpful playlists on YouTube, and I know Muppet Wiki has like every sketch ever broken down by category on there, so it would be possible to make one of those playlists. But I feel the same way, that I wish we could see all of the Muppet stuff that Jim and Frank especially are doing on Sesame Street that we haven't talked about in our episodes and we haven't been able to watch. It does feel like we're missing a lot.
This is also where like where Richard Hunt, I feel like, developed into who he is. Like I got such a huge appreciation for him, especially from Don Music. Like he gets to stretch his legs so much more in Sesame Street than I feel like he does in The Muppet Show, where he's just Scooter basically and Janice, but Janice has barely done anything so far.
Yeah, he gets some interesting side characters on the Muppet Show from time to time. But he does get to stretch his legs a lot. It's like sort of like Jerry Nelson. Like I think they both get to come out from under Jim and Frank's shadow a bit more on Sesame Street. And that was
great. That was so refreshing. I'm so much a bigger fan of both of them now that I've seen this stuff.
And I think it's really clear immediately, too, how integral Carol Spinney is to Sesame Street, because, those Muppet guys aren't around all the time. They're off in England doing their show. So we need Carol Spinney to step up. And you get so much Big Bird and Oscar throughout a lot of these that it really shows how much they leaned on him.
Yeah. We didn't get a ton of Oscar, I feel like, really. I think maybe either those were in other episodes or like Oscar's like a golden era is still to come or something like that. But he didn't pop up too much.
Yeah, and I do think there's, again, because we only watched the season premiere of all of these seasons, there are storylines that we just didn't get to see. My favorite thing is looking up through like some of the seasons and seeing like how they summarize these episodes. And one just said Oscar decides to make Grover angry. Like that was the plot of an entire episode. It was just Oscar going like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to piss off Grover.
Yeah, I got it coming.
Yeah, but I actually, I have I do not have a lot of notes about Oscar in my Sesame Street notes because the only biggest development we saw was his traveling trash can that showed up in season 3.
That was pretty good. It deeply horrifies everyone who sees it.
But I was curious if Muppets aside, did you have a favorite human cast member that you discovered during this watch?
I really liked David. I think he was so natural and so he had like so much energy that some of the other people maybe didn't always have. Like Bob is a little too Mr. Rogers for me.
Yeah.
Gordon is not in these episodes super a lot. First Gordon is, but then it feels like they kind of kept newer Gordon in the back a little bit and like eased him in. But I loved David. I love Maria, but I think I just remember her from when I was a kid too. But I think she's really fun. I think it's fun how she gets so mad at all the Muppets. She gets so mad at Big Bird whenever he talks about Mr. Snuffleupagus and is like, you're lying, Big Bird. There is no such thing. Or she hates Oscar the Grouch so much in the Christmas specials, especially. She's like banging on his trash can and
she is the one that I think we called her out for being overly mean to Oscar.
She like picks Oscar up by his lapels and like shakes him when she figures out that he tricked Big Bird. So yeah, those two. And Mr. Hooper, of course, is fantastic.
Yeah, another thing I found out about Mr. Hooper, Will Lee, who played Mr. Hooper, is that we haven't got to the episode where they discuss his death yet because he dies in 1982. So eventually we'll do like an 80s Sesame Street episode once we reach the end of the 80s. But not only did they have to deal with his death on here, but it was also interesting to learn that he was blacklisted for a while under like McCarthyism.
Whoa.
Because of his like association with some like communist groups, like acting troops and stuff. And so, Will Lee, I think this is to a larger point that like when I was a kid, the idea that these people weren't who they were on Sesame Street was something like I had to reckon with at a certain point because some of them, their names on the show and their names outside of the show are the same, like Bob and Bob.
Yeah. He's kind of the only one, right?
Well, Linda, I know also is Linda.
Yeah.
Maybe they're the only two. But the fact that, like, when I learned that, like, Luis and Maria's names weren't Luis and Maria, I was like, wait, but then who are you? Like, wait, you're an actor? Like, I just thought I thought Maria was Maria, that they just, like, brought Maria, this person, onto Sesame Street, and now she just gets to be Maria from Sesame Street. So the fact that, like, some of them are actors outside of Sesame Street, and Will Lee had a very long acting career, both like before and during Sesame Street. And I'm just like, I can't imagine watching a movie and seeing Gordon pop up or Susan or Bob and just being like, get out of there.
Yeah, I was talking to Rachel about that. It's so interesting that you don't really see them on like talk shows or anything either. And there must have maybe been some kind of like conscious effort to be like, you're these guys and you don't have a public persona or something like that because they really don't.
Yeah. And I think you see that more and more these days that like we have more access to do behind the scenes things and you get to see people from these earlier days of Sesame Street talking about the earlier days. I started and tried to watch a special that we'll eventually get to on this podcast from 1999 called Sesame Street Unpaved.
Oh boy.
That is narrated in that voice the whole time.
Ew.
Because it's extremely 1999. But they have some of the like human performers sitting down and discussing things in a very 90s way. So they've done some of that through the years, but yeah, I think they largely kept them away from showing too much personality outside of the show, which I understand because kids have a hard time understanding this actor versus this character. And so them seeing Bob play like a murderer in a movie or something like that might fuck him up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But maybe like Mr. Rogers is he kind of makes it feel weird because he was himself so deeply, and like you can think of him as someone walking around the real world, and it's like there's Mr. Rogers, same guy is on the show. But
well, and his name is Mr. Rogers.
And his name's
so
Mr.
like
Rogers.
calling him like, "Hey Fred, hey Mr. Rogers," like he's
He'd be
still
like, "Yes."
that.
And
But
he
if you
wouldn't-
saw
don't call me that.
right,
Yeah.
but if you saw Roscoe Orman out and you're like, "Hey Gordon," he's like, "God damn it."
I mean, it's
I
his whole
understand.
life, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's like, "My name is Roscoe. My name is not Gordon."
Who is your favorite?
I think I agree that David definitely was a very like heartwarming character,
Yeah.
and I think because we didn't get to see David during our lifetimes,
Yeah.
like growing up and watching Sesame Street, having this like new character to fall in love with was
He was
very
there
nice.
for like 12 years or something.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked a little bit before about like the very like heartbreaking story of Northern Calloway's life, and why he eventually left Sesame Street and what eventually led to his death. It's a whole big heartbreaking story that you can like look into, and it's a lot to unpack, and there's medical racism involved, and there's
Stigmatization of mental illness.
yeah, he suffered from like bipolar disorder, and yeah, it just he did not get the help he needed, and was treated very, very poorly when he was brought into the like psychiatric hospital system.
Yeah.
So it's a very unfortunate story of Northern Calloway, but I think like seeing him and how he got to shine on Sesame Street in these days, it was very nice to see, because all I had really known about him before we started watching these episodes was the sad story.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting to see how sort of fast Luis and Maria sort of rise to prominence.
Mhm.
Like they're introduced on the show, and then all of a sudden it seems like they're getting much more screen time than Gordon and Susan.
Yeah. At least in what we watched, yeah.
Yeah, again, like we have watched 1% of what had happened at this point.
Yeah.
So it could be, completely different. But I know that during the first 10 seasons, they will do trips to New Mexico to like visit some of Luis's family.
Mhm.
They'll do trips to Puerto Rico to visit some of Maria's family. And I don't think they do any trips to visit Susan and Gordon's families.
They're probably just from New York.
I mean, maybe they don't give them an interesting backstory, or Bob's family or whatever, but they...
It would be funny to go visit Bob's family. Go to Ireland and hang out with a bunch of Bobs all singing folk music.
oh,
That would be
Daddy
cool.
boy.
Yeah.
Or they go over to like
Go
they to
on
Japan
tour
with
to
Bob,
Japan with Bob, yeah. It's like Bob.
and
you know
everyone's
about
just
this?
mobbing Bob and just being like, "What is happening?"
And all the characters are just like, what the fuck? Babu, come on. Why didn't you tell us?
But yeah, speaking of humans, did you have any favorite celebrities that showed up in this batch? I have a feeling.
You gotta know one of mine. Come on.
I gotta know Madeline Kahn.
Hell yeah. Her and Grover
Madeline Kahn
together. I'm
has a
picturing
great number of
myself as a
Grover.
tiny little guy sitting in Madeline Kahn's lap, please.
Telling her how attractive she looks today.
She's so funny too. She's so like, we're gonna have a really great time, and just barely concealing her disdain for, but also love of Grover, which is an appropriate reaction to Grover. I love that one. The Ray Charles thing where he's playing with Bert and Ernie was so good though. That was one of my favorite things we've ever seen on this podcast, I think.
I liked the Johnny Cash one. He sings
Oh, God.
Nasty Dan
That's
with
so
Oscar the
funny.
Grouch.
And Oscar's like in awe of Johnny Cash and how horrible he is.
Yeah, he's like, "Sing about Nasty Dan. I love it." Everyone always sings happy songs on this show.
Yeah. There goes my kind of guy. He does a "There goes my kind of guy" instead of the regular "There goes my kind of woman."
Yeah, which is, thankfully we didn't see a lot of that creepiness from Muppets in this batch.
That's a
Except
Cookie
that, like,
Monster thing, really, usually, right?
well, and that we got that from Grover at the beginning of the Madeline Kahn one, where it just like opens up. It was almost like he didn't realize the camera was on, because the very first thing he says to her is like, "You look very attractive today."
Come on, though. It's Madeline Kahn. What else? are
I
you gonna
understand.
say?
I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, that's weird for Sesame Street
All
to
the
have.
kids were thinking it too.
Who is this very attractive woman Grover's sitting on? I was kind of surprised at some of the humans who showed up, the celebrities who I guess weren't as famous at the time.
Mhm.
But you have Alan Arkin, who shows up as a comedic character.
It's like a continuing duo in the second season, I think, right?
Yeah, they're kind of terrible. It's Larry and Phyllis, I believe they're called.
They're less bad than the first two guys. Remember those two guys who tried to hang the picture up? I hated them. These guys, these were a little better.
Yeah, it's Alan Arkin and his wife, Barbara Dana, playing Larry and Phyllis, and they're just not very good. And I see why they only lasted like a season. But at one point, we also have the Mad Painter get introduced, which are these little weird sketches that went on for a while. And Stockard Channing is in those sketches.
Like a bit part. Very interesting. But she had already been in Grease, right?
I don't know at that point. I don't think she had been in Grease yet.
Huh.
Grease was after that.
Okay. Yeah, and he's somebody famous. I think the Mad Painter guy is famous.
He's an actor who definitely has popped up in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember at this moment, but when I looked him up, I was like, oh, it's that guy. But yeah, I also I mentioned earlier the Helen Reddy sketch is great because she's sitting there singing with a group of kids, and there's one I'd say 1.5, 2-year-old kid who is just clapping the entire time she is singing, and it feels like there's a couple times where they cut it to close-ups of her where maybe someone was trying to get that kid to stop clapping and it just didn't work. And the entire time he's off rhythm, he's just clapping, he's having the best time of his life, and they don't do another take, they don't stop, they don't say, hey, get that kid out of here, and I kind of love that.
Yeah. She was in the Muppet Show, right?
Yeah, she hosted an episode.
Oh, she dances with the camel at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
So she's used to chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we didn't see a ton of celebrity cameos really in the batches we watched, but the ones that just stood out obviously were the ones we mentioned, but also the Jesse Jackson one, which you talked about previously on this, the I Am Somebody sketch that has gotten, a lot of play recently when people are complaining about Sesame Street being political, and people are like, this is from 1972, my dude. It's always been extremely political. All right, Sam. So obviously we're not going to break down every single sketch from every single episode of every single season that we watched for this, but I did want to run through the seasons real quick and just sort of see your highlights, maybe your lowlights, things that stood out, things you enjoyed from each season. So obviously, yes, we talked about season 1 and episode 1 back in episode 7 of this podcast. So we're going to jump right to season 2. Worth noting, this is the only season of the show produced with 145 episodes. They really swung for the fences on their second season. I don't think so. I don't think they started doing the reruns until season 5 or 6 when they were like, hey, this is too many. We need to repeat some of these.
Yeah.
And they also didn't really have that many to repeat. They just done one season.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, as you mentioned, some of the new monsters this season, like Harry Monster and Sherlock Hemlock, who being both great standouts. But I also learned from reading Carol Spinney's book recently that Big Bird didn't have a monitor inside of him until season 2.
Oh.
So in season 1, he is just peering out through some feathers, like a little hole. And so sometimes Big Bird's clumsiness in season 1 was not on purpose.
That's scary. There's time that he almost eats shit on a tricycle. And I don't know which season that was in, but that I got a little nervous for him. And when Snuffy's tail was in play, I would get nervous for him as well.
There's an episode in a later season that we did not watch, but I ended up watching part of where Big Bird decides to run for president. And when he decides to run for president, he sings this lovely song. And at the end of it, I think it's Luis and maybe David pick him up on their shoulders and carry him around.
I guess it's just a guy. It's weird to think that it's just
but it's a guy in a giant suit with his arm above his head.
Yeah.
And during the whole thing, Big Bird is like, put me down. I have to run for president. And I'm thinking part of that is also Carol Spinney saying, dear God, put me down.
That's cute. Yeah, it's easy to look at Big Bird and think this guy weighs 400 pounds of pure muscle, but he's really just some spindly little dude.
But yeah, did you have any standouts or lowlights from season 2?
I'm looking at I put some stars next to some things. The floating nose in the Guy Smiley game show, I really liked that.
I think Guy Smiley was a standout for both of us. I think
he is
going to be our Muppet of the Week, so we'll talk about our feelings on him a little bit later. But I always knew about Guy Smiley, but getting to really experience the chaos of Guy Smiley was quite the joy.
Yeah, and was that the one where none of the characters had noses? So they didn't know what a nose was?
I believe so, yeah. He's trying to get them to guess what a nose is, and they're like, oh, okay, that's a nose?
Oh, yeah, it's like Cookie Monster and those guys, and they're like, well, I don't have one of those, so I couldn't possibly. And then the Sherlock Hemlock sketch was really funny where Ernie's lunch is eaten and it turns out that Sherlock did it. But I like the beginning when he's like, oh, where's my lunch? And then the music starts and he's like, that sounds like detective music. That made me laugh. Yeah, mostly the little puppet things in the first one. The first episode that we watched had a lot of animations and short films and stuff like that. But the puppet stuff was all like as strong as it will ever be already by the second season, I thought.
Yeah, Big Bird gets a really nice song called Everybody Makes Mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is one of those great Sesame Street moments where you're like, they're teaching kids some really good lessons here of, yes, everyone makes mistakes, and that's fine.
Yeah, that was a nice one. I loved the song that they sang at the end of the walking tour of Sesame Street about how everybody loves that baby, but they still love Big Bird too. But there
Oh, yeah.
about how Big Bird's big and stupid and the baby's little and cute. That was a great song.
I also liked in season 2, the premiere episode, which if you're looking for it on HBO Max, is called Oscar's Grandmother Visits.
Which she does for just a few seconds, really.
Yeah. Most of the titles on HBO Max, on HBO Max, these things are not in the right order. So like season 2, episode 1 is not this one. And like season 3, episode 1 is not the premiere. They're in a weird order. And so you have to like kind of source through Muppet Wiki which episodes are actually the premieres. But it's still weird seeing Superman at this point because we get the Superman crossover cartoons.
Yeah.
And still very strange to think of Batman and Superman being on Sesame Street in the early days.
It's long, too. Very intense. And then there's also Grover's Over, Under, Through song.
Yes, with the saloon doors where he's teaching us about over, under, and through the doors,
which
and
is
getting exasperated as he goes on.
Just as good as anything they've ever done. It was so good.
And then season 3, which again is called Big Bird Meets Mr. Snuffleupagus on HBO Max. Obviously, we see the introduction of the super scary Snuffy on this. I realized early Snuffy, played by Jerry Nelson, that's just Thog's voice.
Yeah, it really is. But he's less horrible to me. I like that he's so sad, maybe is why. It's Thog who understands that he's a monster.
Yeah, you like a sad Thog.
Yeah. One thing I noted about some of the background puppets in this and like some of the incidental like whatnots and stuff, they look better than Muppet Show whatnots do. They have a more Don Celine's design ethic, I feel like, our ethos runs through this show more than it does Muppet Show, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if that's because of the like core characters, most of them being designed, at least in part, by Don Celine.
Yeah.
And I think like because their designs have not changed much, which obviously is true of the Muppets as well, but I think like Muppet Show has to introduce so many new characters.
Yeah. I just think of Sexy Lady Muppet, and it's like, that's one of the... I don't like that Muppet. But there's nobody as weird as Sexy Lady Muppet because they're all just whatnots with like different noses stuck on. And I'm sure he probably made, like Don Celine probably designed all the pieces for all the whatnots way back when. So
yeah, it's true. Like I think there's very interesting categories on Muppet Wiki that go through basically the category of anything Muppets and whatnot Muppets that are basically these patterns, and we'll talk about this more with Guy Smiley, who they'll say like, okay, so this is the golden orange anything pattern, and then Muppet Wiki will list out every character who's like ever been based on that pattern, and you see, oh yeah, no, they had some like 5 main forms that they used for like every background character on Sesame
large
Street.
purple live hands. That's the count.
Exactly. I also like the Martians a lot. We introduced the Martians in season 3.
Yeah, they were good.
No matter what they're doing, they make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially on the very early chaotic Martians are great. I think there's a lot of unrestrained chaos in these earlier seasons.
And like the Martians are something that could be on Muppet Show easily.
Oh, for sure.
Muppet Show skit.
We also get some Sesame Street classics like Alligator King, Ladybug Picnic, and
Alligator
for
King's
Cookie.
so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I love the animation on that one.
And the Ladybug Picnic song, I think, is just ingrained in my brain forever because that's one that they'll show on Sesame Street forever.
It's also on that DVD you gave me. It's the song that plays over the menu. So it took me a little while to change it once, and it was just like, I know this whole song now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But then we get the debut of the Count in season 4.
Is the block thing his first thing he's ever in?
Yeah, his block one that we talked about previously, where he's actually menacing and he hypnotizes Bert and Ernie.
Zap him, yeah.
Yeah, he sounds a little different. He sounds more Bela Lugosi than he will later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get the debut of the menacing version of the Count in season 4. We get also Sam the Robot, who is partially just useless.
I wrote Sam the Robot as a Tesla. Because I think it was specifically when his navigation system was not working correctly. And it was like, he thinks this is Huckleberry Street or whatever, but it's Sesame Street. And it's like, the Tesla thinks this is the street, but it's a train tracks.
Well, and he also refuses to be wrong about anything, which feels
As well,
in line with
yeah.
that mentality.
He is a Twitter. He is Elon Musk in robot form.
But yeah, thankfully, Snuffy looks much better in season 4. A lot less creepy.
They figured it out pretty quick that he is fucked up.
We have some all-time classics, I think, in this batch. In season 4, we have the Song of the Count.
Oh yeah, that was
which
great.
It's just, I could,
In
put
his
that on like
nasty
any
old
mixtape you're going to
house
send to
with
me. Just Song of the Count, all-time great song. Not even just all-time great Sesame Street song. This has season 4 premiere also has what I thought was very, very funny, Here Is Your Life segment, which is hosted by Guy Smiley.
The tree
This
one?
one is, this one's for a tree.
Yeah.
And they bring in a table and chair that
From
used to be his
Sausalito,
friends.
California. Yeah. One character that I need to change my rating of, Prairie Dawn. She was so good and so funny, I thought, in her little plays that she would put on with all the monsters.
Yeah, we get school pageants performed by a number of Muppets, usually like Harry Monster, Ernie, and Cookie Monster. But Prairie Dawn is the one who clearly orchestrated these and is directing the pageant. And yes, she is. There's a few Sesame Street Muppets that I wish I had rated higher looking back now, and she is definitely one of them. Where I'm like,
she'd be like a 4.5 star now because she was really good.
And I have I tweeted about this, and no one has given a satisfactory answer on Twitter yet for me. In one of those pageant sketches, they open up on the stage. Prairie Dawn is standing there, and there are 2 flags on stage. One, clearly the American flag. The other one is this greenish and black striped flag that has like 6 stripes on it. And it doesn't look like any real flag that I've ever been able to find.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious if this flag shows up anywhere else in Sesame Street, if this is the only place it shows up, if there's any sort of meaning behind it. It's an interesting thing that there's like this emblem in Sesame Street that just doesn't show up anywhere else.
Yeah, that caught Rachel's attention as well, and she really wanted to know if it was just like their school flag, if it's like their neighborhood flag.
Which I didn't know school flags were a thing until I tweeted about that, and people were like, "Oh yeah, my school had the American flag in their school flag," and I was like, "What? We had like the American flag in our state flag." But
yeah, that's what we had too. I just made up the fact that there were school flags. I have never actually heard of that before.
People said that was part of the responses I got. That, like there were school flags, and I don't even know what a school flag would be.
Black and green stripes.
But then season 5, Sam, I have to disagree with you about something.
Okay.
I like the Twiddlebugs.
Oh my God, you would like the Twiddlebugs. They're so annoying.
But they're just our core 4 Muppet guys with their voices chipmunked.
Yeah, but I don't think I like that kind of skit. That one feels the most. I think we talked about this before, where you know what they're supposed to be doing and they can't do it, and then you don't know how long it's going to take them to learn how to do it. And there's another one where the human hosts are trying to build the letter H, and it's like zippy fast, but it keeps like rewinding and like, and they're like clowning around and they're building the H and they do it wrong like 4 times, and it's like, how am I going to be watching this the rest of my life?
There's times where you can feel the new video editing tricks somebody figured out, where they're just like, look at this, I can go ooh, 10 times, and they're like, okay, but can you do it 12 times? It'll be more fun.
Or like freeze frames that are so jarring, it's like, oh well, my HBO Max crapped out, but it's really just very odd editing. But the Doodlebugs are just like, when are they gonna? Come on, guys, get your shit together. I don't have
Twiddlebugs. Come on, Sam.
What
you
are
have to put some respect on the Twiddlebug name. They have their own land at Sesame Place, the amusement park.
They do?
Yeah.
So people love them.
Some people do.
Huh. But what was a highlight for me was fake Phenomena shows up in Rat Cat Sat, which I thought was one of the better things we saw too.
Yeah, we have Bip Bipadada, who is somebody we've discussed in the past, is essentially a Phenomena without sunglasses. And somehow, at some point, the genetic tree split and created Phenomena and Bip Bipadada as 2 separate humans.
Yeah.
But he is an amazing, unhinged Jim Henson character who, gets to sing the fat cat sat on something that rhymes with cat. I don't remember at this point.
It's basically Phenomena again with the snouts and stuff, but just like a different permutation. That's very cute too.
This is also, we get to see in this batch, which is, I believe, a re-airing from season 4, but we get the very, very famous ABCDEF Cookie Monster bit with Kermit and the little girl who refuses to say the alphabet and just wants to say Cookie Monster over and over.
Yeah, those feel like, because you see, what's the other kid's name? JJ?
John.
John. You see him a lot too, and those feel like they were filmed like during the pre-production of the entire series, and that they just sprinkle him in.
Yeah, there are a couple times you even see Kermit with his double collar that he only really had in the earlier days.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's very clear that they re-aired some segments or filmed them much earlier and saved them for later episodes. Yeah. But it's nice to see, Kermit get so involved on these things in a way that we have not seen Kermit on the Muppet Show, clearly. Yeah. He even has an on-the-street interview with a child who just seems to
doesn't go particularly well.
No, it doesn't really go anywhere, but it does seem like they just grabbed a random child off the street and they're like, hey, you want to talk to Kermit the Frog for 5 minutes?
I do like this. Some of the skits are just and it's over now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just and cue the music.
Yeah. Season 5 also has Bert's star-making turn with Doin' the Pigeon, where he's giving a slideshow of pigeons and then just basically out of nowhere does a full body tap dance routine. It's beautiful.
It's like he asked to give a presentation on pigeons and didn't tell anyone about the big finale.
Yeah. He's at work and he's doing this dance and everyone's like, what bird are you? He's got to let out he's got to stick too far up his ass. But it's a full body thing. And it made me think a few years later, they'll do full body Statler and Waldorf and they'll look so scary. But Bert doesn't look scary at all. I
mean, he's also not as weird and gangly as Statler and Waldorf are. I think because they're more human looking, they have that uncanny valley thing happening.
Yeah.
Whereas Bert can have his little scrunched up feet a little bit and doesn't really bother us that much.
Yeah. Bert's such a fun character. He wants to be fun so badly.
And season 6 seems like it was a bit of a transitional time for Sesame Street because this is the year that Sam Pottle will replace Joe Raposo as the music director.
Oh, interesting.
Joe Raposo will actually come back to be music director starting in season 15 until I believe his death in 1989. This is also the year where Roscoe Orman takes over for the role of Gordon. This is the last season Jerry Jewell worked as a writer on Sesame Street because obviously he was gearing up to go work on Saturday Night Live and The Muppet Show.
But he was on this season?
Yes. Okay. This is the last season he worked on. And this season is the one that introduces the practice of airing old episodes instead of new episodes. The rule of thumb at this point was to take episodes that aired at least 2 seasons before and recycle them as new episodes, essentially. And they would combine them with different sets of things. They would sometimes film some new pieces to insert and make it a new-ish episode. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the episode would be repeated. But yes, this is the episode 666. Rightfully opens up with the counting the street lights on Sesame Street.
This was my favorite intro. I don't know why, but
my favorite part of it is that he calls Bob Robert.
Robert, yes, Robert. It's getting dark, Robert.
I just love the fact that the Count is very formal with the other humans because it feels like he is so much older than the other Muppets. Where he's like, "Oh yes, Robert," and it's my name's Bob. You can call me Bob. He's like, "Yes, Robert."
Yeah, Bob probably hates being called Robert.
Yeah. There's a reason Bob McGrath has gone by Bob McGrath for his 90 years of his life.
And he got them to give him his regular name in the show, too. He's all about being Bob.
He loves Bob. But the Count is, has to be a little bit more formal. He has a cape. He has to be formal. This is the episode where I wrote down that the concept of an exit is explored a lot across these episodes.
Yep.
This is when it was really starting to sink in, where I was like, dear God, do I know what an exit is at this point?
I think the next one maybe is when there's the whole musical number at the very beginning of the episode, or is that this one? But
I don't
that's
even
a good
remember.
Song. But
is that the one where Bob dresses up as a creepy clown, or is that a different one?
No, the musical number one is the one where it's the Greaser background singers, and it's the guy playing piano, dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first time we got to see a Roosevelt Franklin sketch, which was I expected to see a lot more Roosevelt Franklin in what we watched, and we only got to see him in this one season 6 sketch. Richard Pryor shows up.
Yeah.
For a very confusing...
Don't feel like he would teach me the alphabet that well if I were to listen to it, but...
Yeah, he's saying the alphabet, and I don't know who this is for. I don't feel like he's having a good time.
Like Saturday Night Live, probably. Parents, maybe. Cool parents.
Well, it's not even just the appearance of Richard Pryor being there that throws it off for me. It's his performance in this and the way he's presenting the alphabet. I'm not sure who is getting what out of this sketch.
Yeah, and it does seem like you mentioned just a second ago, partway through, it does seem like he loses interest completely. And then at the end, he's like, oh yeah, I guess I only have to be here for 45 more seconds. So
Yeah, it seems like he didn't realize how long this was going to take him.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm only here for like 2 minutes, right? I can drop in and do this, and I'll leave. And then
There's how many letters in the alphabet?
oh, there's so many
my
letters.
God. This is also Don Music's debut, which I really like because it's another Kermit being a little stinker, kind of.
Yes. Which, I don't think I like Don Music.
Oh, I love him. He's so distraught.
He's very distraught. He is the tortured artist, but I also feel like his sketches just go on a bit too long for me. Like I kind of get the joke very quickly, and then I'm like, all right, can we move along?
I think that's kind of why it's so funny because they're rewriting like classic nursery rhymes, and then at the end, like a backing band like kicks the door down and comes and sings this whole long song. I don't know. I was rolling on the floor for all the Don Music ones, and this was another good Muppet News Flash or Sesame Street News Flash. What's it called? Sesame News Flash.
Sesame Street News Flash, yeah.
With the Jack Trumps over the candlestick, who is Floyd.
He's
Right?
just Floyd.
Yeah.
He's just Jerry Nelson doing his Floyd voice. There was a few times throughout these where I was like, oh, Frank's doing Fozzie when he's playing this big bad wolf. And Jerry's doing Floyd when he's playing Jack.
Yeah.
That, like, obviously, human beings only have so many voices in their heads. But it was funny to hear very clearly the voice of Floyd Pepper coming out of that man.
Yeah.
Season 7, I guess it's worth noting that we did not see this, but there is a 5-part special where they go to New Mexico. And this is also the season where both Big Bird and Cookie Monster, separately in different episodes, decide to run for president.
In the same season?
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
that's weird.
very early on in the season, Big Bird decides to run for president, and I think that episode is on HBO Max.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And then later on in the season, Cookie Monster decided he wants to run for president. So I'm guessing we were probably in a period of like campaigning pretty heavily. I'm guessing we were like leading up to a presidential election or something because it would be weird to have those two things happen without that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is. I've watched a couple of those clips, and it's fun to watch how they handle sort of slight political humor on Sesame Street. But I still, there's more things in season 7's premiere that just made me feel like bad for Big Bird and Snuffy because this is the one, the HBO Max title for this episode is Headline Howie Gets the Scoop on Snuffy.
Yeah.
And basically a Fleet Scribbler type reporter comes in to try and write a headline.
Better than Fleet Scribbler. This worked better for me. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. He's a little less skeezy as well. Yeah. He's trying to write a headline about the so-called Snuffleupagus that there has been sightings of or that Big Bird claims is real. And he's just trying to write more and more sensational headlines.
The fun thing was that he had already had them written and printed. They were just newspapers with these headlines on them. And this is the one also where at the beginning, Snuffy is walking around trying desperately to get people to see him. And this is where Rachel was like, this poor man, his life is hell.
There's so many times where, and like I understand the joke is that they can't see him, but there's so many times where I'm just like, say something a little louder, Snuffy.
Just tap his shoulder, Snuff.
Yeah.
You're
say,
right.
hey, look at me. Or like when David hears Snuffy, and instead of just opening the door to see Snuffy, he's like, I have to go tell everyone on Sesame Street that I'm pretty sure I heard
that
Snuffy.
That was a big boner on David's part, for sure.
Yeah.
He fucked up. You got to take your opportunity to see Snuffy when you can, because you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's happened every day for the last 5 years or whatever. Like, you're not going to see the Snuffleupagus. So if you have an opportunity...
The one on the walking tour of Sesame Street where the fountain goes off behind them right before they turn around, that was a really good one.
Well, it's so infuriating, though, because you can clearly tell, like, they had to time the timing of the fountain with Snuffleupagus walking behind the fountain. Uh-huh. And so... You have this like extra few seconds of Big Bird being like, no, just turn around. And the humans being like, yeah, sure. If we turn around, there's going to be a Snuffleupagus. He's like, he's right there. Turn around. And I promise you. And they're like, all right, if you insist. And they turn around and the fountain has gone off and you don't
Such
get to see
mistreatment of Big Bird. They're so nice to him in all their aspects of life and so patient.
Well, they're so willing to be like kind to him and caring and help him out in every other part of life until he's like, hey, I have this friend you should meet. And they're like, yeah, sure you do.
Yeah. Then they're like, hey, Big Bird, fuck you. Bye.
We're never going to believe you about this big hairy friend of yours. There's some conflicting information about when the pinball animation actually debuts, but the world-famous pinball counting animation, some say debuts in Season 7, others say debuts in Season 8, so I think it's worth mentioning that it might have debuted in Season 7.
Ooh, Season 7 also has the Grover invents the wheel, which I quite liked because he called him Caveman Biff, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah, I like it's when you get a bit of that sort of Muppet Show vibe where it still feels like our Sesame Street characters are on a set performing roles.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I like both versions of that. I like when they are fully in character. They don't feel like just like actors playing a part. But I also love when it twisted a little bit and you feel like, oh, yes, this is just Grover's performance for this week. He has gone on stage to be an actor.
He is Caveman Grover.
Yes. Then in season 8, there's a weird moment that stood out to me of we see a human child in Bert and Ernie's apartment.
Oh, yeah.
Was weird to me, and I'm sure it happens a bunch more times. But just seeing seeing a human in Bert and Ernie's apartment felt wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine that they live in the bottom floor of that apartment building because it's so sparse in there.
Yeah, we get the tour of Sesame Street, and is pointed out clearly of like Bert and Ernie live in the basement, Susan and Gordon live on this main floor. I don't know if they say who lives up on the top at all.
I think Maria might live up there.
Oh, yeah, she does. She lives
She's
up
always up in
the
that
top
window.
left corner. Yeah, that's right. And I know at some point, like, they allude to the fact that, like, clearly we see Kermit's apartment at some point in one of these episodes. Grover has to live somewhere. And so, yeah, it's interesting to imagine where the rest of these people live. And I know eventually they expand some of these buildings and add some more buildings to Sesame Street to explain that away. But, yeah, it's nice seeing Kermit at home. I like his little apartment he's got. He's got some very 70s wallpaper in his apartment.
Yeah, just kind of a crummy little apartment.
Yeah.
What about, did you think it was so weird when Beetle Bailey kept showing up?
Oh, yeah, there's some Beetle Bailey cartoons repeated throughout some of these episodes. And yes, it was like the Superman and Batman thing where I'm just like, why is he here?
Even a little weirder. Do kids like Beetle Bailey?
No,
Kids
I don't
like Beetle Bailey.
I don't think kids are reading the Sunday comics and they're like, ooh, yeah, give me that Beetle Bailey.
Yes.
I knew when I was a kid and I would, go read Family Circus and Garfield or whatever like that. I was never really skipping over to Beetle Bailey.
No, yeah. You would be lucky if your eyes even grazed Beetle Bailey.
Yeah, give me a Wizard of Id for sure, but I don't need Beetle Bailey in my life.
Is this also the one where the Fonz inexplicably shows you how to brush your teeth for a really long time?
That actually might have been season 7, but yes, we do have the Fonz and Richie Cunningham in the bathroom at Al's Diner brushing their teeth for some reason.
Yeah, and the Fonz, Richie's like, man, I wish I could brush my teeth. And the Fonz is like, I always carry a toothbrush for a friend. It's never been used, and pulls it out of his stinky leather jacket.
It is a bizarre concept of like how to work in Happy Days into Sesame Street of like, okay, what do they do that we can have them do on Sesame Street? Nothing? Cool. What if they brush their teeth in the bathroom?
And it's so weird. Richie's like, I didn't see you eat any food. And the Fonz is like, I just love to brush my teeth.
Which, to be fair, that's a Sam move right there.
Oh, yeah, that's what Rachel said. Rachel said, that's you. And I said, yeah. I mean, the Fonz.
You've never been more like the Fonz. Season 9, something we didn't get to watch, but happens, is the multi-part series on their trip to Hawaii in Season 9.
I really wish we had gotten to watch that.
They're all on HBO Max. You can go watch them.
It's like
a 6-part
I might
series
go
or
back
something.
and watch some Sesame Street because some of it was pretty interesting, I thought.
Yeah, I was tempted to go and watch some extracurricular Sesame Street during this, but we also just had like 15 hours of Sesame Street to watch for this episode, so I didn't feel like adding in a couple extra hours was worth it.
Yeah, and part, like 50% of it was changing those goddamn DVDs so I could watch all the classic cuts. I haven't changed a DVD in years.
Yeah, we watched a lot of these on the old school Volume 1 and Volume 2 DVD sets just because that was the easiest way to sort of think about this attempt at an episode was to go, okay, they've already compiled these for us as a greatest hits. Let's just watch all of these DVDs, and that feels like we've done a good enough job.
Yeah.
But for the listening people out there, you do not have to own those DVDs because I put together a list of all of the things we watched and where they are on YouTube, so you can go watch almost all of them. There's like 2 or 3 things that aren't available anywhere on the internet besides they're on the DVD sets. But
what a guy.
Yeah, you can watch them on YouTube.
Wow.
But in Season 9, we have Woof Woof debuting, and we also have Monster Piece Theater debuting, and we also have the Two-Headed Monster making their first debut on this season as well, who I don't think we really got to see anything of.
Yeah, I don't think we saw them either.
And the last season we watched for this bash is Season 10, because it finishes up in 1979, where we are currently at in our chronological order. And this season sees the premiere of Telly Monster and Bruno the Trash Man, who neither one we got to
No.
see in any of the things we watched. This is also the year that apparently Jim Henson and Michael Frith were given the task of coming up with some new Muppets to revitalize the show. And it seems like Telly Monster and probably Bruno came out of that. But I believe Bruno was also at least partially designed by Carol Spinney. Like it was partially his idea to do this walk-around Oscar idea. But one of Michael Frith's ideas apparently was a living pile of trash who would act as a font of wisdom. And they said, well, let's not do that for Sesame Street. And so they said, okay, let's just put that on Fraggle Rock then.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Marjorie the Trash Heap was originally pitched as a Sesame Street character. And CTW was like, nah, we don't want trash. We already got a Grouch. And this was a very dog-focused premiere, which actually makes sense because they are naming Barkley. But there's a lot of like cartoons and little live-action segments all about dogs in this one.
Right. I learned how a faucet works. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Thanks.
I was embarrassed by the fact that I did not know how a faucet works.
No, wasn't quite what I expected either.
No, we actually learned something as 34-year-old men. There's a very delightful sketch in this episode with Harry Monster, who's looking very dapper, and he has brushed his fur back.
Combed his hair nicely,
very classy.
Yeah.
And he's looking for someone to brush. He wants to fancy up somebody else. And so he tries to brush Maria's hair, and she's like, nah, you're not touching my hair. And then, sadly, the only other person who walks in is Gordon. And Harry looks at him for a moment, explains what he's trying to do, and then just backs away. It's like, no, you're of no use to me, hairless man.
That was really good. He did look so great with his hair combed back. I, for some reason, really liked Harry Monster, and I don't really know why. He doesn't really have, like, a strong character, but he just kind of has, like, a very calming presence, I thought.
He seems like maybe the oldest of the monsters. Like, he seems like maybe he's in, like, his 50s or something like that. He's sort of, like, calmed down.
Old. Yeah.
That's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing him as, like, these kids out running around eating their cookies and stuff. I'm going to go home and brush my hair again.
Yeah.
This is the episode that features a song that perplexingly is about a little girl taking her llama to the dentist. And I still don't understand it. I've watched it a couple times now. And it's just like a song about a little girl taking her llama to the dentist. And that's it.
Do you have to take llamas to the dentist?
I also don't know that people in cities very often have llamas.
It's true.
I think most of the time if you have farm animals, you have somebody come out who takes care of those types of things.
Dentist, yes.
Yeah. I have a strong stance, I think, Sam, about season 10 premiere here.
Mm-hmm.
I may have also contradicted this previously, but I'm going to go ahead and say Barkley and Woof Woof are the same names. They're equal in quality.
I think Barkley's way better. It's way more clever.
I think I used to think that until they kept saying them over and over, and I was like, oh, they're both just like the first draft of like, dogs say wolf and dogs say bark.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Oh, gosh, I didn't even think of that part of it, the onomatopoetic part. Damn, you're right. I felt bad for Bob in that part, because it is kind of like, why are you doing this, Gordon? Why do you want
Gordon is just like, yeah, I know you like to call this dog Woof Woof. Nah, we're changing that.
I know that's his name, and it's been so for a year, but I have decided his name will be different.
Yeah.
And Bob's just like,
oh, okay.
What?
So yeah, that is kind of, our little recap of some of our highlights and lowlights from these 10 episodes that we did watch and the classic cuts. But I do have to ask before we wrap up here, Sam, do you think Sesame Street will ever end? Because the thought I had while watching this is, wow, this show's been on a long time, 5,000 episodes. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere anytime soon. It does seem like it's just a part of American culture at this point that it's very hard to imagine a world without Sesame Street.
I feel like this move to HBO was kind of like a weird, it's like lost its invulnerability somehow when that happened. Like it's like stuff on public television feels like it ends when it wants to end. But now it feels a little bit more like down with every other kind of show that there is to me.
Yeah, I guess when you think about the fact of like the Fraggles and Muppets and Sesame Street are all owned by different companies now.
Yeah.
And I think once that split happened, everything felt a little bit more precarious, that they were all being shepherded by different companies who could just decide to not do anything with them for a while. Like we saw that with Fraggles. Like Fraggles had their time and then they went away for a really long time and now they're back. But like there was a long time without Fraggles. And we often get a long time between big Muppet projects with Disney, and it's
that makes sense. But like
interesting.
the Jim Henson Company has a vested interest in keeping Muppets going. They did, at least before everything got split. But I guess Children's Television Workshop has always been different, right? It's always
Yeah,
been,
well, like early on, it was still like Jim Henson was such a big part of that early on,
Yeah.
but then like upon his death, it sort of went a little bit more separate from the Jim Henson Company. But obviously, there's still obviously the overlap of who makes the puppets. I think I think the Jim Henson Company and Sesame Street maybe still have the same puppet makers, and the Disney Muppets are made by a different company.
right.
But it's just sort of I don't imagine it happening anytime soon, obviously, but I do think you're right that when they move to HBO Max, it feels a bit more of like if HBO decided that they weren't making enough money off of Sesame Street, that they could just cancel it.
Yeah.
And if anyone else wanted to pick it up and pay for it, they could. But it feels a little bit more precarious now that it's in HBO Max's hands.
Yeah, and it feels also in its favor. It seems easier to replace the voice of Sesame Street Muppets. Like less people freak out when that happens. For whatever reason, I guess maybe because less adults consistently watch Sesame Street and kids don't know any better. But there are characters that are going that like Rolf was gone forever, but Grover I don't think was ever really gone for any super extended amount of time, was he?
I don't think so. I think there's especially I think the main characters that will disappear for extended periods of time are some Jim Henson characters and Richard Hunt characters. But that is the other thing they have on Sesame Street that they don't have on other shows is the ability to re-air things. And so I know with a lot of Jim's characters, they may not have been recast super quickly, but they were able to re-show like segments from a few years previous.
Yeah,
and
people
so
still
kids
know who Bert and Ernie are.
Right, and so kids won't immediately notice an absence of Jim Henson's Ernie.
Right. But the country is also less interested in funding public television, I think, than ever before, possibly. So that seems like a mark against something pure and good like Sesame Street, too. The world's too nasty.
Well, and I think there's also this attitude of, and I think we fall into this sometimes, is this HBO Max Sesame Street isn't good.
Yeah.
And to be fair, neither one of us have watched much of it.
Yeah.
But I have also, the stuff I have watched is perfectly fine. Like, it is not bad. It is different. It is shorter. They give less time to lots of, like, side sketches. It's mostly focused on street-based stories.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to Elmo's invasion of everything, but maybe that's fine, too. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think there is this overall perception that Sesame Street has lost its way. And even if that's not true, I think it ekes into people's perception enough that they maybe aren't fighting as hard for Sesame Street these days. And we could be completely off base here. We're definitely in speculation zone right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do plenty of business with baby toys and stuff. So I don't think they're like hurting for money. But I do think the fact that they were willing to sell to HBO Max and be like first run exclusive to HBO Max before it was shown on PBS later shows that there's a shift in the mentality behind Sesame Street.
Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like they carried on the spirit of Jim Henson a little bit more than the Disney thing, maybe, where the Disney thing just got like put away. But this is just like a continuous version of that world, of that like stream of consciousness.
Yeah, and I hope I don't see a world without Sesame Street in my lifetime, because if I have a kid and want to set them down in front of the big old boob tube and show them some Big Bird, I want to have that opportunity.
Yeah, now I feel like that too. Like I would love if my child were interested in Sesame Street.
I mean, for a little while when they're first born, you're just like, yeah, here's some Big Bird stuff. You like Big Bird now. But like at a certain point, they're going to grow up and be like, what's this weird yellow bird? I don't like this guy.
Yeah. Or I'll be like, you don't understand how cutting edge this animation is, kid. This is
Here, sit down and listen to 3,000 episodes of your dad's podcast.
Yeah, this was computer animation in the 70s. You don't even know.
But yes, that is the first 10 years of Sesame Street. We will be back to discuss some more Sesame Street things throughout the episodes of our podcast. Obviously, we'll talk about their TV appearances as they come up, but we will also do an end of the 80s, another decade of Sesame Street retrospective.
Years from now, maybe.
Who knows? We're just about to hit the 80s, so it's going to be a while, I have a feeling. So now it's time for our Muppet of the Week. This week's Muppet of the Week is Mr. Guy Smiley. He is also gone by some other names, though. When he was first introduced, he went by Big Bob.
That's a good name for him.
He was also Sunny Friendly.
That's a good name for him, too.
It feels like an evolution of like Pokemon. Like we have Big Bob, Sunny Friendly, Guy Smiley.
Big Bob would be the last one, and he'd have like a tank turret on his back, you know?
Yeah. It's just, well, maybe his like giant mouth opens up and a turret comes out of his big old mouth.
Yeah.
Just unhinges his jaw completely.
Yeah.
And yeah, so apparently there's also, some in-canon storyline stuff about his name as well. There's a sketch where Count Von Count introduces himself in the Beat the Time sketch, which is one I believe we got to watch.
Yeah.
And the Count says, they call me the Count because I love to count things. And Guy Smiley says, well, I'm Guy Smiley. They call me Guy Smiley because I changed my name from Bernie Liederkrantz. So yeah, Guy Smiley is the overly energetic game show host of Sesame Street who hosts segments like Beat the Time, Here Is Your Life, and What's My Part. He is a very tall-headed yellow Muppet, sort of like if you
quite
added
a chin.
Yeah, it's like if you added a giant jaw to Bert.
Yeah.
And he's technically based on the very often used orange gold anything Muppet pattern, which is also used for Don Music. There's even a moment in the 50th anniversary celebration episode where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like walking down the street, and from a distance he sees Don Music, and he's like, "Hey, Guy Smiley!" And he's like, "No, I am Don Music." And then later on he sees Guy Smiley. He's like, "Hey, Don, nice to see you again." And he's like, "I'm not Don Music, I'm Guy Smiley."
That's fun. Don Music's got unsettlingly cute, realistic hair. That's how you can tell the difference.
That's how you know the difference. Yeah. Well, maybe like if you messed up Guy Smiley's hair, his would look like that too.
I guess so. Yeah.
Maybe they're brothers. I like the idea of they're brothers. That one went into like the business world and like a little bit more straight laced with his suits and his game show hosting, and the other one's just a tortured artist.
They're both in the entertainment industry, though.
That's true. But yes, that puppet was also used for a number of various celebrity parody Muppets. It has been used for Vincent Twice, Salvador Dada, and also characters that were just called Rick Astley Muppet, Jack Bauer Muppet, and Carson Daly Muppet.
Jack Bauer Muppet?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
The first version of this pattern actually showed up in the Federal Housing Administration commercials they did way back in the 60s, and on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1967 when they performed I Feel Pretty. But Guy Smiley debuted in the first season of Sesame Street in 1969. He was performed by Jim Henson from 1969 until Jim's death in 1990. And then Don Reardon did the voice of Guy Smiley on a couple of 1995 CD-ROMs that were released. But in 2005, Eric Jacobson, who does a lot of Frank Oz's characters, took over the role of Guy Smiley and has been doing him ever since. A couple of fun facts about Guy Smiley. Joan Gans Cooney, who is sort of the mother of Sesame Street, has said that she thought Guy was one of Jim's funniest characters. Which, I gotta agree. He's got great Wilkins energy.
Yeah. Jim doesn't get to do this kind of, he doesn't have that many characters on The Muppet Show that are different. He has only got Kermit and Link pretty much.
Yeah, and he gets to do his Ralph a lot as well, but the fully unhinged levels of Guy Smiley are not very much matched on The Muppet Show.
And it was fun every now and then to hear a Muppet come out as a bit part and be like, oh, that's Jim doing a fun voice you don't hear very often, like his Wild West voice.
That was one of the things on watching Sesame Street was it was a little bit harder sometimes to figure out who was voicing some of these characters because obviously you have some people like Fran Brill and other people who are only on Sesame Street. And so you're like, wait, is that like Carol Spinney? Is that Richard Hunt? Who's doing the voice? And so it was fun to have that little guessing game. But speaking of the voice, John Stone revealed in an interview once that Jim really did not like performing Guy Smiley because of how badly it strained his voice.
Oh, that makes sense.
So for Guy Smiley sketches, they would often pre-record them so that he would not have to do that multiple times during the live performance.
Oh, okay.
And in one episode later on, not something we watched, you will see that Guy Smiley's living room is a replica of his game show set. So he cannot leave work at work. He brings it home with him. He even has 3 curtains set up in his house. Behind the first curtain is his home furnishings. Behind the second curtain is his personal organ player. And behind the third is his own personal studio audience.
That's great.
And we also find out in that segment that Guy Smiley has a dog named Strongheart.
Okay. It's weird.
It's a pretty good name.
A game show name or something, though.
Yeah, or not even like a weird pun or anything. It's just Strongheart, my dog. So I think Guy Smiley's a new favorite of mine. And when I was looking back through my ratings of Muppets and trying to figure out where Guy Smiley would fall on that list, I realized that I really lowballed a lot of great Muppets early on, especially some of the Sesame Street Muppets that we hadn't seen a lot of. And the fact that normally my scale is, are you better or worse than Sam the Eagle, who is 50 out of 60? And I only gave Ernie a 51, feels very wrong at this point.
Yeah. He's an all-timer.
Yeah. So I'm going to give Guy Smiley also a 51 out of 60.
Okay.
Because he's better than, I like him more than Sam the Eagle.
But Ernie should be higher, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe he's like a 50.5.
I really liked him. I'd love to see more of him. I think when I'd see him, I would be like, oh, I kind of wish this guy was just on the Muppet Show because he's so fun. I think I'm going to give him a 4 because I didn't like him as much as I like some of the other Muppet Show Muppets. But it was just so refreshing to see new characters that weren't Fozzie and Kermit.
Yeah, I think Guy Smiley is one of those that I will probably watch some more of. Like, I know there's a good Sesame Street compilation video that they put out on their YouTube channel where you get to watch a lot of Guy Smiley. So I think I'll probably check that out just to get my fix every now and then.
He's somebody who wasn't really around when we were younger, I feel like. He didn't pop up as much, maybe.
No, he feels like one of those that after Jim died, they didn't worry as much about trying to replace.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't get another full-time performer until 2005
yeah.
Shows that. All right. So I know, we took a week off. We watched so much Sesame Street, but did you have time to enjoy any non-Muppet stuff during this time period, Sam?
Honestly didn't really watch anything that I haven't talked about before. Watched Righteous Gemstones. I watched that mystery show that I can't even remember the name of. I don't think I even watched any movies because I kind of waited till the last minute to watch some of the Sesame Street stuff. So a lot of my free time was filled up with this.
I was a little concerned for you at one point when I had brought some of the DVDs to you and you hadn't started watching anything. And I was like, oh God, fine. Sam, I know what you're in for. And it's a lot.
It wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. It went by pretty quick, but it took up a lot of time. I would have been watching other stuff. Didn't even play any damn video games, but I really want to play Elden Ring.
I've been getting into the not new Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh yeah, that's supposed to be great though.
Yeah, because the new one came out, the sequel came out, and I was like, I've had this sitting on my PlayStation for years, and I just never played it. So
is it fun?
It's pretty good. I'm still pretty early on in it, but it's it seems like something I could get into if I sit down and have time that's not Sesame Street time.
Yeah, you mentioned that Breath of the Wild made you not play that, probably because of time commitment, I'd imagine, to Breath of the Wild. I didn't play it.
They came out very near each other, and it was just one of those things where it's like, I have to throw myself into one of these open world games, and I'm not going to throw myself into two.
I didn't play it because my brother played both, and he was like, I played Breath of the Wild first, and then when I couldn't climb up stuff in Horizon Zero Dawn, it was very jarring, because I'd come up to like a rock and be like, oh, I'll just climb over this rock, and then you just couldn't do it. And I was like, that sounds annoying. I don't know if
you can do the like Skyrim hop up some things
where
you just like you find a rock that's slightly higher up than the one you're currently on. You're like, all right, hop there, hop there, hop there, hop there, hop there. So you can kind of climb that way, but you can't really climb in the Breath of the Wild kind of way.
Right.
I also watched a couple things during this week. I watched Abbott Elementary, which is a new TV show that's very good. And I also went back and we watched the old classic 1935 Top Hat.
Top Hat?
Yeah, it's a Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers movie.
I never heard of it.
Oh, it is truly a classic. I suggest everyone go out and watch it. It's one of those things that you go back and watch and you're like, oh, this is where a lot of rom-com cliches started.
That
like
sounds
this
fun.
is and as far as I remember, there's no weird like dated racist things that happened in it. There's a few like shitty husband wife type of tropes in there, but for 1935, it holds up much better than you might expect. And it features 3 songs in that movie that they have performed on The Muppet Show.
Oh, what are they?
The Cheek to Cheek one that Danny Kaye did with Miss Piggy is a straight up pull from that. And also the Rudolph Nureyev one where he machine guns the Muppets with his cane.
Oh, yeah?
That is because in Top Hat, Fred Astaire performs that number, and he does that with his cane. But what he's doing is he's like using his tap shoes to make gun sounds, and he's like shooting people with canes. Whereas on the Muppet Show, they just use machine gun sound effects.
Gun sound.
Yeah.
Okay, we're learning here, folks.
Yeah. So I had seen Top Hat once before years ago, but I wanted to revisit it, and it still holds up. It's still great.
Looks great. I want to watch this maybe today.
I highly recommend it. It is great. So, before we go, we need to let you know what we will be watching next time. And we are not watching anything. Record scratch? We are actually going to be discussing some of the most interesting musical albums put out by the Muppets in the 60s and 70s. Now, the list of albums includes Jim Henson's very first musical release that we discussed briefly in the past, but it is a 45 he put out with Tick Tock Sick on one side and The Countryside on the B side. And then while the Muppets and Sesame Street combined did put out 47 albums in the 70s, we are not going to be discussing all of those because a lot of them are just soundtracks or compilations of songs from Sesame Street or The Muppet Show. And so that would not be really interesting because we'd basically just say, hey, that's that song from Sesame Street. Good job. So I have gone through and picked out 10 of the most interesting or weirdest albums that we could talk about. And that list includes the Muppet Alphabet Album, The Year of Roosevelt Franklin, Havin' Fun with Ernie and Bert,
Great.
Pete Seeger and Brother Kirk Visit Sesame Street.
Okay, weird.
It's a super like folk music album where they sing about Martin Luther King, and it's badass. We have Bert and Ernie Sing Along, which is a concept record where Ernie forces Bert into a sing along by pushing his piano into the bathroom while Bert is taking a bath.
That's amazing.
We have The Count Counts, which is a tape that was put out where the Count is playing a radio DJ, sharing his favorite songs.
Ooh.
We have The Sesame Street Monsters, which is an album all performed by and about the Sesame Street Monsters. Happy Birthday from Sesame Street, which is, about birthday parties. The Sesame Street Fairy Tale album, where each character gets to tell their own little fairy tale. And Sesame Street Fever, which is a disco album.
Oh my God, I'm excited.
So those are the albums we will be listening to and discussing, I'm sure, with various levels of discussion, because there might be some that don't have the payoff I'm imagining and aren't as interesting to discuss. But there's some definite weirdness that I can guarantee in some of those very weird concept albums they put out in the 70s. So yeah,
I'm excited.
Next episode will be all about music. And speaking of music, the music for this podcast was made by our friend Tuna, so we need to thank him for doing that for us. And also thank Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at KermitmentPod, where we will tweet out the list of music we can listen to for that next episode, so you don't have to try and rewind and write down everything we just said. And don't forget to head on over to Kermitment.com to pick up a Kermitment logo enamel pin. Logo enamel, those words didn't come out very clearly. But moving on, it's the end of the show. You can also email us if you have any thoughts at mail@kermitment.com. If you have any questions that are longer than a tweet, you can follow me on the internet at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.